Meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to open the press conference now and thus ask you to please take your seats right now.
meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, liebe Kolleginnen,
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, I would like to welcome you most cordially to our opening press conference of the ITB 2012. During the last few days, there were two factors in the reporting on the ITB that struck me. That there is an increased amount of reporting before the ITB has even started compared to last year, and then the positive reporting about this year's partner country, Egypt. As you know, the ITB is not only an appealing window for an appealing shop window for the tourism industry, but we also expect against the backdrop of the positive development in our industry, the answers to a number of questions. How will the economy in Europe and all over the world develop? What kind of effects will this have on the consumption and the traveling behavior of consumers? Now, these are questions that need to be discussed and need to be answered, and what is necessary for this is expertise. On the ITB Berlin Congress, you can find the concentrated expertise of the whole industry, and it is being expected that the experts help to provide orientation. We are looking towards a very positive opening situation for this ITB. We've heard many positive reports, and the speakers here on our panel will give you the facts and data to back this up. The partner country will not only advertise its beautiful destinations, but also use the ITB and its manifold events to inform you about the current situations around the Nile. Egypt will now introduce itself as a destination within the framework of this ITB's press conference with a short movie clip.
For thousands of years, Egypt has been a melting point for the world. With its unique blend of climate, geography, people, and history, Egypt is not just a country. It is a fountain of inspiration and discovery for the whole world. A land with its own unique fusion, with its mixture of sights, medley of sounds, blend of smells, combination of tastes, and an array of textures. Each with a story to tell, the story of who we are. Our new campaign is an invitation from Egyptians to the world. The Egyptian people are the most genuine source of information. Talented and naturally welcoming temperament make them the perfect ambassadors for the new Egypt that is unfolding in the world's eyes. We're Egypt, where it all begins, through the Ankh in our logo, with all the mystery behind its meaning. The Nile Valley with the east and west deserts, a sign for eternal life, or the key of life, a symbol with great inspiration. We will invite the world to a live experience of Egypt in Berlin through multiple channels. That's why we invited 10 Egyptian artists to share their vision of today's Egypt with the world through 20 Ankh installations across Berlin. And with a press conference in March, Egypt will invite Samel, a singing group with a mix of Christian choir and Islamic Sufi chanting in a mesmerizing fusion. Then we'll invite Berliners to experience a little bit of Egypt traditions and crafts around town. Until opening night, where the Egyptian Ministry of Culture and Cairo Opera House will inaugurate the ceremony with artistic performances and invite the world to Egypt. Inside, the Egyptian Pavilion will extend our warm welcome to visitors and invite them for another encounter with an Egyptian bazaar with different traditional craftsmen and experiences from key destinations in Egypt. We're Egypt, and we're hosting the world. 2012, where it all begins.
Ja, liebe Kolleginnen.
Esteemed colleagues, thank you very much. This movie clip has shown us again that it is worthwhile visiting this beautiful country, and I hope that Egypt this year will make good business and that it will be worthwhile for Egypt too to have tourists coming back to Egypt, and that in volumes that are expected by Egypt right now. And now let's move on to our speakers. First of all, the Managing Director, Dr. Christian Göke, head of the Messe Berlin, will explain to you what you can expect to see this year at the ITB Berlin, as the year 2011 was for the tourism industry, and what kind of trends can be expected for this year, and the special needs that we have and that we will formulate vis-à-vis the sphere of politics will be explained by Mr. Lepple, the head of the Tourism Association. Afterwards, Mr. Blüchi will give us growth forecasts for the industry, and he will also talk about the top destinations of the Germans and the trends of the tourism industry. And then the closing word will be spoken by Mr. Munir Abdel Noor, His Excellency, the Minister of Tourism of the Republic of Egypt. And now let us begin by giving the floor to Mr. Christian Göke. Mr. Hofer, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you too here in Berlin. For those who have come from abroad, we have a very, very beautiful Berlin weather right now. I will try to make it short and sweet because the other gentlemen will have to say a lot about current issues and topics. That is why I would like to shed some light on 5 highlights of this year's ITB. Let me start out by formulating a thesis or a theory. After 12 years of experiencing the ITB, I think I can fairly claim that the ITB 2012 is even closer to the developments of the industry than any other ITB before. And I would like to give you 5 examples to back this up, 5 examples from this year's Congress program. Every one of you who's ever had visited such an event, of course not of this scope, because the ITB Congress events are the biggest tourism congresses now in Europe. Everyone who's tried to organize such an event on a smaller scale knows that you have to really think about what kind of subjects to talk about and what kind of speakers to invite. And we are very glad that we have 5 very topical subjects to talk about. But what is more important is that we have the most important speakers of all over the world for these subjects. Let's start with the first important subject, and that is the European debt crisis. The European debt crisis has, of course, very, very severe effects on traveling and consumption behaviors in Germany, in Europe, and all over the world. And I'm very glad that we were able to recruit Mr. Hans-Werner Sinn as a keynote speaker here. Professor Sinn, at least for those who have an interest in economic affairs, he is probably the most well-known face in Germany. And in the countries abroad, he's being perceived as the voice of reason with a view to the German approach. And that is why I'm very glad that within the framework of the ITB Future Day, he will be talking about the European debt crisis. And the second issue, safety and security in cruising. I don't need to explain to you why this is so topical. We will have the executive cruise panel here tomorrow, and we will welcome all the industry leaders here in Berlin. Then emission trading, that is the next hot topic. And we have, again, one of the most important persons, at least in Germany, Klaus-Peter Siegloch, but I think he's also the right person to shed a light on the international situation, and that is on the 9th of March within the framework of the ITB Mobility Day. The changes in the Arab world, in the North African countries, we are very glad that we do not only have His Excellency here with us today, but that also the tourism ministers from Morocco and Jordan will be here all through the week here in Berlin, and you will have numerous occasions to talk to these gentlemen and to exchange your views on the situation. Then the fifth subject, climate protection and sustainability. Within the framework of the ITB Mobility Day, we will, I think, manage to really make or work in different areas. And we start with Felix Finkbein, a 14-year-old boy who is the initiator of an incredibly successful initiative, Plan for the Planet Children's Initiative. This young man will describe his point of view in a keynote speech, which I think is quite remarkable to talk in such a framework at such a young age. And he will give us his perspective. And then we will come full circle with a top management like Jochen Seitz, who is the head of Puma. And Puma is now part of PPR, the European Luxury Goods company, and he is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Puma, and he will describe his points of view. And I think these two cornerstones actually show the whole scope within which we will try to deal with these subjects. So the debt crisis, the changes in the Arab world, climate protection and sustainability, and all the other subjects. I think you can't really have a broader base for our Congress. Now, the figures that are important for you. Last year, 188 exhibitors. This year, it's 187. More than 10,000 exhibitors and 10,440 to be precise. And what is the most important thing for us as the organizers of this trade fair from the economic perspective is the number of square meters that we rent out. And we have more two-story booths than ever before, and that means that the available space is becoming scarce because our exhibitors need to use the space on top of their booths too. That also, I think, shows how valuable our participants think that their participation is. And this leads over to the third highlight that I would like to talk about. What are we doing, or what's is it that we are doing in order to make this event that's now been taking place for 46 years? How do we improve this for our customers? Well, we have two important figures, the number of exhibitors and the number of visitors, and you are the intermediaries, the link in between. But what is important for us is that the expert visitors come and the trade visitors come from abroad too, and we have found a new approach in order to attract the 500 most important trade visitors here to Berlin, and we've called it the ITB BIOS Circle. We founded this now recently, and the 500 most important people, or that we consider most important, were hand-selected and then invited. This is comparable to the Horn Circle of the Lufthansa. Oh, speaking of Lufthansa, they are again part of our event. And that is, of course, something that we're especially glad about, because all those companies and exhibitors that come and return show that it is important to be part of the ITB. So we're trying to come up with new activities, new service approaches in order to improve the quality of our event and try to do what the Japanese called Kaizen in the 70s and 80s, which helped to save a Porsche, for example. But this is also something that is known in Germany because all the craftsmen, for example, know and think about how to improve their products. And that is exactly what we are trying to do here. Improving our product. Now, bloggers, very topical indeed, this subject. We are trying to somehow try and make these bloggers feel at home here in Berlin. Yesterday evening, we've had a welcoming event in the Palais under the Funkturm. That was exactly here. We've invited 200 bloggers, and this group should be represented at the ITB, should become part of the ITB, and we are very, very glad that the guiding figure, Keith Jenkins, the guru among bloggers, will be here in Berlin too. Now the fifth highlight, as I promised you, this morning we will hear something about the most important trends in the different areas of our exhibitions. Let me start by telling you the following. I think that the innovations within the industry currently very strongly are shaped by the area of travel technology. This is due to the fact that on the one hand we have 236 exhibitors creating a new record for the segment. But I think also with a view to the quality of these exhibitors, it is quite remarkable. What am I trying to say here? In this area of travel technology, if I try to put it rather bluntly, this is not only about hotel reservation systems any longer. This is rather more about the application-based programs and possibilities, service approaches that help you to not only choose which journey to go on, but also provides the remaining services. And this is a real thrust in innovations. And I think Berlin is exactly the right spot to introduce these new trends. I'm not going to claim that we are the second Silicon Valley in Berlin here, but with a view to Europe, we are the city with most developers of applications and software developers. So nowhere else in Europe can you find a city where there are so many software developers as here in Berlin. And that is a trend that I find extremely interesting. And that is that large international internet startups have their management based in Berlin. And this is not entirely new, but it is a slowly developing kind of trend. There is a growing awareness that here in Berlin we have the large international startups and their management here in Berlin because young international professionals live here in Berlin and they can offer these services. I'm putting such an emphasis on this because this proximity to international youth can be equal to a proximity to new international trends. It's always the international youngsters who define these new trends. It's always been like this and it will remain like this in the future. And that is why Berlin, as a location for trade fairs, is so attractive and why this is so important for us as event organizers, because we can try and integrate these trends in order to reflect them back to our customers. And I think this is a true value added in with a view to the events taking place here in Berlin compared to other congress and event centers all over Germany. Then there is another trend that we can talk about, and that is the area of experience and adventure travels. So eco-tours, expeditions, adventure travels, these are gaining in importance, and this happened over the last 5 years. And in Hall 4.1, we can see that there is hardly any space left for exhibitors. Then the aspect of gay lesbian travels, this is also becoming more important. They have their own catalogue now, and I think this is a development that is well underway. The Asian countries are more present than ever before. Indonesia, China, Mongolia are growing, sometimes even booming. The European area is something that I would not like to talk about now because the gentlemen colleagues will be speaking about that. But Germany as a tourism destination is very successful. Then His Excellency will talk about the countries of the Middle East. And the only thing that I would like to mention is that Egypt has been part of the ITB since 1966, that is, since the very beginning, and I am especially glad about the fact that In 2012, Egypt is our partner country at the ITB, and that they increased the exhibition space, as well as Tunisia, Morocco, Libya, and other Arab countries. And Syria and Libya unfortunately cancelled their participation. But now let's talk about North America. They have founded something like a federal office for tourism. This is a very good development for all of us who want to take a trip to the US or Northern America. I think this will help to make things simpler for us. And that is, I think, more or less all I wanted to say. I think we are very well underway with a view to the ITB. I hope that there will be no further strikes, so that everyone can come here and find their way back home. And I would like to thank you that you found your way here today. And I'm looking forward to the next few days. Of course, I'm also looking forward to the opening ceremony this evening. And with that, I would like to give the floor to my colleagues.
Dankeschön, Herr Dr. Göke.
Thank you, Dr. Göke. We now hand the floor to Georg Kleppler, President of the German Industry Association for Travel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mr. Hofer, for giving me the floor, and I would like to join in and welcome you all. This morning we start at an hour earlier than usually, and this was simply due to the fact that there are quite a series of press conferences scheduled today, so that we were asked to pull this press conference forward. And this also is an indicator that the ITB this year is particularly in the focus of the media, and we are, of course, pleased with this. Let me just say something from the outside. 2011 was a year that wasn't just good, it was an excellent year for the tourism industry. When it comes to overnight stays in Germany, we have approached consistently this magical threshold of 400 million overnight stays, and the Federal Statistic Office counted more than 394 million overnight stays in 2011 in Germany. That was a renewed increase, a year-on-year increase of 4%. So we have a new German record. And once again, we were pleased to see that we had a clear increase of 6% when it comes to foreign guests. 63.8 million overnight stays were notched up by that group. We have also other records here in Berlin, 22.4 million overnight stays, and Hamburg was able to notch up 9.5 million overnight stays. When it comes to the turnover, the hospitality industry in 2011 was able to achieve the best growth rates in over 10 years. An increase of 3.8% to roughly 60 billion euros meant that levels were achieved that were pre-crisis levels. And that really means that the boom, the economic upswing has also reached the catering and hospitality industry. Lufthansa Group also booked a passenger record in 2011. 106.3 million flight passengers meant an increase of 7.5%. And also the international travels increased in Germany by 5%. The aimed for threshold of 200 million travels, such as the 400 million overnight stays, another magical marker, was not increased. 198.2 million incoming and outgoing flights were notched up. But so we have roughly, so we've had also strikes that have affected that. And if we didn't have the air civil aviation tax, for example, that threshold would have been achieved. The German Federal Rail, Deutsche Bahn, will be presenting its figures at the end of March, but it is becoming increasingly clear that they have also been able to, notch up an increase vis-à-vis 2010 by roughly 1.9 billion euros. That was their income. And we also have an excellent situation when it comes to coach tourism. 32% of the entrepreneurs have said that their business is thriving, and 58% of the entrepreneurs believe that it was an excellent year. The events industry also considers that 2011 was a very stable, even indeed a good year. A survey of the Business Travel Association, VDR, amongst its members at the end of last year showed or revealed that more than half of them were had the intention of continuing to travel despite the financial and economic crisis, and 70% of them said that they would increase their travel activities in winter. So what are the forecasts for 2012? As far as 2012 is concerned, the tourism industry stands to continue its upswing, its increase in business activity. In most areas, we will have an increase in growth, albeit somewhat weaker than initially expected, roughly coming in at 2%. Germany as a destination is still booming when it comes to foreign guests, so that we also expect that in 2012, the sound barrier, 400 million overnight stays, will be actually broken. And we also believe that the hospitality industry is going to notch up an increase of 2% turnover. And in the air travel, we will also reach the threshold of 200 million passengers in German airports or at German airports. But once again, I stress that the civil aviation tax is costing us passengers and will also continue to cost us employment and jobs. But of course, as far as the entire tourism industry is concerned and other sectors of the industry is concerned, it really depends on the overall development of the economy and the business environment and development of energy costs. As far as the business area is concerned and business travel is concerned, we believe that we will have a stable number of travels with an increase in prices, but firms and companies are cautious because they maintain or they have contingency plans if the economic situation should deteriorate in any case. So what are the demands that we have for politicians and for public authorities? I think that developments are really quite positive and speak for themselves. And also there is a survey, tourism as an economic factor. This is the short version that I'm just showing you. And if you wish to have the exhaustive, comprehensive version, we can also forward it to you. So if you only look at direct effects, almost 3 million people, i.e. 7% of all jobs in Germany are in the tourism sector. 4.4% of the gross value creation in Germany is due to tourism. And that means that overall consumption in private and business travel in Germany comes in on roughly at 280 billion euros per year. Those are very impressive figures, but what we really need as a sector is more understanding for our work. And mobility as a central basis for tourism is very often criticized. And there are two tendencies that we perceive as being very critical or actually posing a danger. First of all, there is a lack of understanding in great swathes of the population for future infrastructure measures, particularly when it comes to noise due to flight and construction activities. It is important to find some kind of compromise in order to also ensure that there's an understanding on the part of the citizens that this is very important. Germany needs night flight permits, and we need investment in new train stations, motorways and landing strips in order to not start lagging in the international arena of competition. Germany must not be relegated to the margins when it comes to tourism. It would be simply taking up a negative and a position in opposition really is counterproductive. And the second point is that there seems to be a thriving activity on the part of municipalities here and politicians to increase the load of duties and levies on the industry. For example, we have ecological emissions-free zones in the cities where even coaches, modern coaches, are not allowed to travel, and this is really counterproductive. And we also have several municipalities in Germany who have introduced the bedding tax. In 23 of 27 countries, we have, for example, a lower value-added tax for hotels and the catering industry, and therefore we believe that the lower tax system in Germany is also justifiable. The federal government is really standing idle and witnessed as at the beginning of 2012, the value-added tax for river cruises rose from 7 to 19%, just right out of the blue. And in other areas where clients were able to enjoy the Cash for Clunkers project, for example, comparing to that, travel and tourism is actually sanctioned yearly with $1 billion in extra levy charges, and this is then actually invested in other areas that are really unproductive, such as, for example, subsidies for foreign low-cost carriers. Brussels seems to be unwilling to acknowledge this, and the emissions trading, for example, is another example for this. The US, Russia, and China have made clear that they are not willing to accept the emissions trading, and therefore it is important to include third country states. And the government, for example, has also shown its unwillingness to be cooperative in using the non-application decrees according to their whim. So I believe that we have really reached a level of extra charges that is really unsustainable. The margins in our sector are really very slim. Others would simply frown upon them. And actually handing down the costs to clients, and that would mean increasing prices for the clients, and that is simply not feasible. Private travelers and business travelers have limited budgets, and they will always ask whether they wish to invest their hard-earned money in increasing taxes, because the share that of travel costs that is directly or indirectly then channeled onto the state coffers is increasing. And competition is certainly not standing idle. International competitors, be it the European capital cities or airports and airlines in the Gulf states, are simply only waiting to win over those customers. The many jobs in our sector are firmly embedded and in Germany and cannot be exported. And of course, we are willing to make our contribution in the future, but we believe that there needs to be more understanding for the needs of the tourism industry, and we need to end the excessive burdens. We do not want to be subsidized, but we appeal to politicians and the public to treat us with respect and fairness, and to honor our achievements accordingly. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lepler. We now hand the floor to President Jürgen Büchi, President of the German Travel Association. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome as well. And I'm very pleased to see that you have shown up in great numbers, thus underscoring the importance of tourism industry for Germany, but also for the world economy as such. We, as GRV, the German Travel Association, are looking forward to this installment of the ITB in 2012, because last year was a record year in our area, particularly when it comes to travel agencies and tour operators. And we're really looking now forward to trying to elucidate a bit how we can latch onto that success and move on. First of all, we have to say that the desire for travel amongst Germans is undented. Travels and the early bookings and forecasts for summer 2012 show clearly that Germans will continue to travel and will increase travel in 2012. 2012 has all the hallmarks thus to clock in with a increase in growth, even though there's always a question mark looming given the uncertain economic framework conditions. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2012, the citizens of Germany were able to defend their world champions title in travel. They actually increased their expenditures in travel by 2 to 3%. So the major destinations in Europe are Spain and the Balearic Islands. We're talking about the Iberian Peninsula and the Balearic. And then we have Turkey, Greece, and of course, when it comes to long-haul destinations, the Caribbean, the US, and the United Arab Emirates. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to trends, we have one clear trend in Germany, which is all-inclusive travel, package travels. Many vacationers really appreciate the advantage of having one cost that really covers all. And but this extends far beyond simply catering and drinks. There are numerous extra services that are being included in these packages, like ski passes or diving licenses. So these groups are increasing. And then we also have specifically tailored products for target groups. For example, all kinds of bicycle and boat trips, kayak trips, diving trips, motorcycle travel, or, for example, traveling to a marathon in New York or to the football European Championship in Poland. But then you also have to include wine and cultural travel. So this is a sector that is growing, such as the gay and lesbian travel that has been attracting more and more people, and other groups such as anglers and young couples having just wed and music lovers. So we see that there is an increase in specifies tailor-made packages, and people are increasingly looking for such targeted offers. When it comes to city tours, there's still an increase in demand, not only internationally, but particularly also in Germany. And this is also one of the reasons why the coach tour operators are also looking back at a very successful year. One of the growth sectors in the travel sector is, of course, the cruise ship industry. The number of cruise ships and cruises have been increased, and we will have new cruise ships, both for sea-going cruises and river cruises, that are becoming put into service. And in 2011, we also had more growth, and we will be giving you the exact figures on Thursday when it comes to the cruise ship market sector. We will have a separate press conference on that topic. We're particularly proud also about the fact that roughly 5% more guests have last year decided to book their vacations with tour operators, and thus the turnover grew by 2.2 billion euros to roughly 23.3 billion euros. And not only tour operators were able to post an above-average turnover rise, but the travel agencies as well. Their turnover grew by vis-à-vis the last year by 2 billion euros, and thus achieved roughly 9.5%. Achieved roughly 22.4 billion euros. And this shows that personal expertise, personal counseling is still something that is very much in demand when it comes to our clients. Ladies and gentlemen, the pre-booking season for 2012 is in full gear, and I can tell you that this year is to a very auspicious start. The number of early bookings has risen, even though the February figures are still lagging somewhat behind. But if we look at Tunisia, for example, we have an increase in demand vis-à-vis the last year, and it becomes clear that after the elections there has been calm has been restored, and confidence has been restored, and we have excellent booking figures for summer in Tunisia. And I believe that a great part of that, what has been lost last year, has been compensated this year. And also when it comes to the classic destinations for Germans, Turkey, Spain, they are all at a very high level, and they all are having growth rates. And Croatia is posting very strong growth rates, that after having had somewhat of a down period is really returning to its former strength. This year, the Germans are particularly also traveling far abroad. Caribbeans, Dominican Republic, the U.S., those are destinations, and Asian destinations as well, that are attracting increasing numbers of Germans. Somewhat reduced is still the for Greece, and it still has that is certainly last year they had a strong growth due to the fact that many travelers chose to go to Greece instead of the North African states. But I think we still have somewhat of a difficult situation there. But Greece is one of the favorite destinations of Germans, and you have to stress the fact that none of the political upheaval has been taking place at the beaches or on the islands, which are the traditional tourism centers for Germans. let's talk about our guest country this year, and Egypt has really used its opportunity to be a guest country this year, and I'd like to really welcome warmly representative of this guest country, Tourism Minister Abdelmouri here. And Egypt is and continues to be a very attractive destination, even in times of political changes, radical changes and upheavals. And allow for a personal remark here. I think it is also part of our duty as Germans to support these developments in order and to make sure that the framework conditions for tourism activities are assured. Tourists are very well received in Egypt. That was the case last year and continues to remain the case in the next couple of years. The tourism destinations along the coast of the Red Sea, on the Sinai Peninsula is absolutely safe. There are no political upheavals or disturbances that have taken place there. And it is still the case that this country is still thrashing out its democratic future, and this is something that we as Germans should not see as something of a surprise, or shouldn't surprise us at all. And I would like to appeal to the clients and to the media to support Egypt on its path towards normalcy in a way. And from a German perspective and against the backdrop of German history, I think we have a duty to do so. And we, as the Travel Association, Travel Tour Industry Association, we will do our utmost to support them. Just a number of figures. I think last year we lost roughly a third of our clients who traveled to Egypt, and I really hope that, just as in the case with Tunisia, we will be able to compensate that loss this year. Ladies and gentlemen, the outlook, and just a brief figures, the travel activity is undented in this country. The political upheavals or disturbances have not dented any enthusiasm. Consumption is up. So we have the best framework conditions in order to establish and witness an excellent travel year 2012. Of course, the sector has also been subjected to extra burdens. My colleague already talked about this at length, and I also stress the fact that we cannot live with added burdens, and even a sector as successful as our sector in this troubled economic environment needs political support. And we represent a very large share of the German GDP, and we are very afraid also of losing that position due to undue burdening. There's one point that I'd like to stress again, a point that has always been a thorn in our thigh from the beginning. That is the difference in the treatment of the Mediterranean countries. And I'd like to stress here that Egypt and Israel have to be included in the group where a reduced civil aviation tax is applied. And this is also a signal of political support for Egypt in its attempt to return to political normality. So thank you very much, and I hope that politicians will have an open ear and an open mind for our appeals. And this is a strong signal that we send out from this ITB to them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dankeschön, Herr Büchi. Das Schlusswort hat jetzt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Büchi. The closing words will be spoken by His Excellency Mr. Munir Abdul-Nur, the Tourism Minister of Egypt. Your Excellency, I'm very glad that you personally came here to Berlin, and you have the floor.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride that Egypt comes to Berlin as the partner country of ITB 2012. It is for us a milestone, a new beginning at the right time. Allow me first of all to thank you for giving me the pleasure to be with you this morning and the privilege to address you and exchange a few thoughts reviewing the events of 2011 that has been for Egypt a turning point. It would be an understatement if I started by my opening remark by saying that 2011 was a difficult year for the Egyptian tourism industry. It started with the 25th of January revolution, a revolution admired by all people aspiring to democracy and justice, a revolution that has inspired youth around the world, from Athens and Barcelona all the way to Wall Street in New York. But like any drastic change, the revolution had a negative effect on the tourism sector. Egypt has been all through 2011 a country in motion politically and socially. Egyptians were and still are determined to change governance and demand accountability. They are adamant to build a new, modern, secular and democratic state. To this end, a lot of steps have been taken. We've just completed the free election of a new parliament. A constitutional body will be elected in the coming days to draft a new constitution. Presidential elections will be held before mid-June. On the social front, laws have been passed aiming at reducing the unbearable inequalities. In addition, the new budget provisions for substantial increases in spending on public services, including education and health. We realize that there is still a lot to be done and that the road to democracy is long and could sometimes be bumpy. But we're confident that the Egyptian people who have sacrificed their youth and led this inspiring revolution will be able to surmount the many obstacles facing them. We remain optimistic for the medium term, and the rationale for optimism is not difficult to articulate. In a democratic society where liberties are respected and where citizens elect their leaders freely, hold them accountable, and replace them if they do not meet their aspirations, policymakers are likely to adopt policies that serve the interests of the majority of the population, thus create an environment conducive to growth and development. But we are also optimistic in the short run, because despite everything, we are seeing positive signs. On the political front, Egyptians feel they have regained ownership of their country that were stolen by the dictator and the cronies around him. They feel that we, the people, must decide of our own fate and are participating in shaping the future of their country. We are optimistic because despite all what seems like a big mess, the economy is moving ahead. Exports in 2011 have surpassed previous years by 18% in dollar terms, and the economy is expected to grow by some 3.5% in the fiscal year 2011-2012. Incidentally, the stock market has gone up by 44% since the beginning of the year. We are optimistic because, notwithstanding the events of 2011, Egypt has attracted approximately 10 million tourists, generating a revenue of some $9 billion during the 12 months of 2011. This is the result of three sets of reasons. First, the strength of Egypt as a touristic destination and its competitive advantage. Without false modesty, Egypt is a golden destination. It is a unique country. Rare are the countries around the world that can offer tourists what Egypt does in terms of diversity of products. It has a unique cultural heritage, magnificent beaches on the Mediterranean and the Red Sea shores, an ever-growing infrastructure for ecological as well as for wellness tourism, and adventure and desert safaris opportunities. Rare also are the countries around the world that enjoy the weather Egypt does, with guaranteed sunshine 360 days a year. As a matter of fact, we brought with us the sun for the opening of the ITB all the way from Egypt. On the other hand, we did everything that is in the book and often improvised to bring back the flow of tourists. We did not and will not spare a minute or a penny to market, advertise, communicate, incentivize in order to get out of the crisis. The third set of reasons behind the bouncing back of the touristic flow is the reality on the ground regarding the security. Security prevails everywhere, and this fact is supported by testimonials from visitors and tourists. Unfortunately, the media is only airing the events that occur from time to time in Tahrir Square, which are not necessarily representative of the prevailing calm and security all over in Luxor, Aswan, Hurghada, Sharm el-Sheikh, and all other destinations. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, tourism has been for more than a decade now one of the main pillars of the Egyptian economy. It has accounted in 2010 for 11.3% of the country's GDP. It employs 1 out of 7 workers of Egypt's workforce. Again, back in 2010, revenues for tourism amounted to $12.5 billion, representing the second biggest source of foreign currency for the Egyptian economy. But more important is the growth potential of this sector. And this is why development of the tourism sector will remain one of the priorities of Egypt's economic policies, no matter who is in government. Consequently, we're taking the necessary measures to build the adequate infrastructure to receive 30 million tourists annually by 2017, and this is our goal. To this end, we plan to diversify our markets and knock on the doors of new up-and-coming economic forces like China, India, Korea, Vietnam, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and many others. We intend also to diversify our touristic attraction and product mix by developing religious tourism, be it Christian or Muslim, ecological green tourism, desert safaris, and wellness. We intend also to create new centers of excellence where real five-star services are offered. Finally, we're going to resume the long Nile cruise between Cairo and Aswan, one of the most beautiful and interesting trips in the world, to allow tourists to discover new, untapped archaeological sites in Middle Egypt. Finally, we're going to develop new touristic zones on the Mediterranean and in the archaeological-rich Western Desert. We are optimistic and confident. We are optimistic and confident that we're going to reach our goal. We shall succeed. Ladies and gentlemen, cultures and civilizations will continue meeting in Egypt on the banks of the Nile, as they have for the last 5,000 years, leading to better understanding between peoples and promoting peace around the world. Thank you.
Exzellenz, haben Sie herzlich.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your very impressive words. Dear colleagues, before we now turn to your questions, I'd like to give you some information. Today is the so-called ITB Media Day. That means that we will have a series of press conferences following this opening press conference. First of all, the Hungarian Federal Tourism Office will be opening in next 28 minutes. Then we have the Japanese Travel Office and Tourism Office that will be staging a press conference right here in the same hall at 1300 hours, and at 2:30 p.m. here in the upper level here, we will have the so-called Rufreisen travel press conference, and this is simply the information concerning the following press conferences that I wanted to share with you. We now have the opportunity to raise your questions. Please indicate your name and the press services for which you read. So first of all, we have Dr. von Torglos, Berlin Press Agency. A question for Your Excellency, Minister Abdel Noor. When will the long river cruises on the Nile be possible once again? I mean, the short cruise between Luxor and Aswan is possible, but there are a large number of guests that come from Hurghada and that are then transferred back to Hurghada after this cruise because they wish to include a seaside stay. It used to be the case that convoys were set up, roughly 40 coaches that were actually accompanied and protected by the military during their travel through the desert. So what are you doing to protect the guests on this very long overland travel nowadays?
If I understand it, there are two questions. One concerning the long Nile cruise. The long Nile cruise is due to start early May. We are taking all the necessary steps in order to promote the banks of the Nile to be able to accommodate cruisers, to receive them, especially in Middle Egypt, in Minya, in Asyut, and in Sohag. I think everything will be ready before the first week of May, and probably the maiden cruise trip will take place the first week of the month of May. As for the security between Hurghada and Luxor, I mean, this is taking place since the month of February 2011, and we didn't have a single problem. So very honestly, I don't see why you're raising this question. Traffic is going smoothly. Tourists are moving from Hurghada to Luxor and back without any problem, and they continue to do so. As a matter of fact, we are trying to ask Egyptair to have a regular line between Luxor and Hurghada to shorten the time of the trip and to allow tourists to spend more time in Luxor, where honestly it deserves to a visit to the west bank of Luxor, to the Valley of Kings and Queens.
Liebe Kollegen, wenn Sie aufstehen.
Colleagues, please, if you stand up, try to remain quiet and do so quietly, because we haven't wrapped up this press conference yet. So next question, please. Mr. Fraun from the German Press Association, DPA. This is a question from Mr. Goeke. Why did you not break the threshold of more than 11,000 exhibitors, and how have city travels developed at the ITB? Well, I tried to explain that during my presentation. The most important indicator is the number of square meters that we have allocated, and with this very large number of exhibitors, more than 10,000 exhibitors, we're twice as large as CeBIT, the computer trade fair that has just inaugurated in Hanover. So we have a vertical rise, for example, right now, that is not reflected in the number of square meters that are reflected. So we have, for example, a hotel group that is also has also rented space here, but they have not brought in their 75 individual hotels anymore, so they have reduced their space. And this simply goes to show that we have an overhead when it comes to demand, an excess of demand, but we also have an increased investment in the second floor of the booth. So I think we have, for a number of years now, been really excessively booked or really been at the limit. So as far as the city travels are concerned, I'd like to I think we always are, striving for 2 to 3% growth per annum. Mr. Well, please use the microphone. Yes. The average price this year has increased vis-à-vis last year by €3, and this is the price increase that we have continuously witnessed across the last 10 years. So it is a very flat increase, isn't it? Are there any further questions? Mr. Aluwalia.
Yeah, Safari India, New Delhi. I have to ask two questions. One question is that it's very nice that you have a very exotic country, Egypt, as your partner country. Is ITB planning to have a exhibition show in the Middle East, in Egypt also? One question. Another question is, second question is that you had some sort of a partnership in India. Asia is a big market and is a growing market. Is ITB planning to have its own exhibition, and then either in India or in China? I'll prefer it should be in India. Thank you.
Herr Dr. Goeke.
Ja, danke sehr.
Thank you very much indeed. That is a very interesting question. And indeed, we would like to have an ITB exhibition in almost every country of the world, but from a logistical, organizational point of view, and from our core task, really, it is it is really impossible to have that as an effective platform. As you know, we have in Asia a new ITB installment, which is ITB Asia, and that covers also the entire Asian market, including India. In the last 4 or 5 years, we have developed very well. We are currently the leaders in that market segment in Asia, and also as far as the U.S. is concerned, in America, South America, we're also trying to set up shop there, but it's always a question of quality involved there. And right now we see that we have these two events, and we believe that these two events provide the best platform for the tourism industry the world over. Your Excellency, you now have the floor.
I cannot leave that question without commenting. I think Egypt would welcome the ITB exhibition for Middle East and Africa. Egypt has the infrastructure to hold this kind of exhibition, and you should go international, and you should branch out regionally. And you're welcome to hold it in Egypt.
Your Excellency, that is indeed a very kind proposal, and we will definitely use the next 2 or 3 days to evaluate that proposal and enter a serious discussion with you regarding that issue. Thank you very much.
Nächste Frage, wie ich gesehen habe.
Next question. If I'm correct, Mr. Doctor from Talkless wishes to raise an issue. A question for Mr. Büchi. The number of external travels from Asia grew by roughly 6% in 2011. That means that Chinese, Japanese, but also Russians are increasing their expenditures abroad. And what are we doing in order to have a stronger publicity presence there in that area? I think that is a question that my colleague Mr. Lettler is actually qualified to answer, but it is clear that we in Germany, when it comes to incoming tourism, are really posting excellent growth rates from the markets in Asia and the other markets that you have mentioned. We have an excellent publicity and promotional platform. ITB is active in those markets, but there's one point that I'd like to raise because it is something that is very dear to us, and that is visa regulations. We as associations are really throwing our weight behind the effort that visa regulations are facilitated greatly, particularly access to the Schengen area is made much smoother for people outside of the Schengen area. And I think that that would increase the attractiveness of our market for people coming from those markets that you mentioned. Well, these are exactly those countries which have a great future. And therefore, we are intensively present and flagging our destination in those countries. And we hope, of course, to be successful in doing so. There are factors that are involved there, but of course there are the so-called imponderabilia that Mr. Büchi mentioned as well. And I believe that we have to roll up our sleeves time and again in order to convince politicians to become more liberal when it comes to issuing visas than it has been the case, and particularly when it comes to comparing Germany to other European countries with whom we engage in very close cooperation. But when it comes to visa issuing, Germany is very much sitting on its laurels in a way, or just insisting on its own way of handling visa issues. And we have to stress the fact that these are people who are willing to, spend a lot of money on their travel when they come to Germany. Are there any other questions? Colleagues, that doesn't seem to be the case, and therefore I'd just like to give you one more hint, and that is that Egypt, our guest country, has prepared a press kit for you that exactly delineates the activities of our partner country, Egypt, at ITB 2012, and I would like to strongly encourage you to pick these up at the exit of the hall. And this brings us to the end of this press conference, and I wish you all an excellent ITB in the coming days. Thank you.